As I woke from my deep slumber this morning, I couldn't help but ask myself, what have I done this week to advance the female cause in today's society? Did I remember to buy only the purest organic fruit and vegetables from the local feminist-run Saturday morning market? Did I remember to call someone a white supremacist this week? Did I remember to cancel my Netflix subscription because the makers of Lucifer refused to recast the lead role as a transgender genderqueer person of colour? Yes, yes, and yes! So much winning! However, as I nestled my head deep into my safe space pillow, I couldn't help but think to myself, you could be doing so much more, and in not doing enough, I'm essentially a gender traitor. Taken aback by such a heinous thought, I decided that it was time to put my toned buttocks into second gear. I only drive manual to mess with the patriarchy, and because stamping on 3 pedals which each have a male's face glued to them is much better than stamping on just 2, and become a member of the Women's Liberation Front. The mere mention of such a prestigious and established organisation sent pleasantly timed tremors shooting down my vaginal canal. It's not like a baby will ever come out of it anyway. The idea that I might one day birth a male is too painful a thought. I whipped out my MacBook Air and made myself a soy latte and readied myself as I closed veganslampoetry.net and opened the Women's Liberation Front's website. If I told you my vaginal canal wasn't positively quaking at this moment, I would be lying to you, and only white men lie. WOLF is a radical feminist organisation. In order to join, you must be at least 18 years old, and you have to agree with basic radical feminist ideas. Agree with basic radical feminist ideas? I separate my coffee beans depending on whether the places they come from treat women with respect and dignity. I not only recycle, but I also stare at the garbage men from my window, and am sure to give an especially pronounced glare if they dare look back at me without knocking at my door and asking for my consent first. I also hosted my city's first ever all-vegan, ethnically diverse, no men allowed safe space yoga session, because f*** you, patriarchy. Please note that we are a women-only organisation, intended to serve and include biologically female persons who survived girlhood. Even though my vaginal canal is still pulsating with delight, I can only express sadness at the willingness of WOLF to deliberately alienate gender non-conforming people and those with exotic coloured hairstyles who scream at you for using the most offensive word that exists. Male. A women-only organisation open only to females? What happened to gender-neutral language? I shall write to them immediately and ask that they replace female with fee-people. Survived girlhood? Mine was indeed incredibly traumatic. Not only did the patriarch of the household buy me a Ford Fiesta on my 16th birthday instead of the Mercedes I had so politely asked for, but I was brutally subjected to a constant torrent of verbal abuse by said patriarch when I announced to the household that my pronouns were they, zim, and that anyone who dared misgendered me was a fascist. We believe that female humans, the class of people called women, I'm glad they cleared that up for all the deniers out there, I am not middle class, I am women class, are oppressed by men under male supremacist system called patriarchy. Male supremacists, but also white supremacists, but I'm sure that was implied anyway. That patriarchy is organised around the extraction of resources from female bodies and minds in the service of men, including reproductive, sexual, emotional, and labour resources. This really hits home, honestly it does. It reminds me of a haiku that was read out during last year's veganslampoetry.net's event by the genderqueer intersectional feminist poet Shazne Granola. My body is an empty coal mine, yet you dig even deeper. I am a void, an abyss, slowly being scraped away by your patriarchal machinery. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. A zig-a-zig. I remember shedding a tear. That gender is a hierarchical caste system that organises male supremacy. Gender cannot be reformed. It must be abolished. That we are enmeshed in overlapping systems of sadistic power built on misogyny, white privilege, stolen wealth, and human supremacism. And all those must be dismantled. I could not agree more. The other day while I was shopping and the time came to pay, my card was declined and I was, get this, told I could not just take my groceries with me anyway. Needless to say, the cashier was a white male. We work to halt male extraction of resources from female bodies and minds by regaining reproductive sovereignty, ending male violence including the sexual exploitation industry, and ensuring that women control the material conditions of our lives. And quite honestly, who would disagree with that? It's not like women can own property, bank accounts, have jobs, or are more likely to gain custody of their offspring should their marriage be dissolved. Disrupt and ultimately end the propagation and enforcement of the gender hierarchy, because women's liberation can only be won when the caste system called gender has been abolished. The only way to get a point across is repetition. Empower women to organise as a class, including the creation and maintenance of women-only spaces. Islam is now accepting applications. Analyse and resist all systems of oppression, because until all women are free, no woman is free. The bravery, the honesty, the audacity. This is what modern-day radical feminism is, and me and my pronouns are enjoying every bit of it. We are unapologetically radical feminists, dedicated to the total liberation of women, a women-only organisation. We are females who survived girlhood. Aw, look at that wolf. Become a member. We don't mean for the joining process to be onerous, but we do need to know that you are a good fit with the goals of Wolf. New member application. Let's go. First and last name. I do not consent. Where did you hear of Wolf? My dear friend Chasney Granola told me about your wondrous organisation as we shared menstrual flows. Online aliases you may have. Vegan Slam Poet, that's an easy one, Website or blog, another easy one. veganslampoetry.net. Published works. The moon and your menstrual flow. Is the tide changing how you think about your vagina? Other organisations in which you are or have been a member. Vegan Slam Poetry Group. Please answer the following questions. How do you define... I was now immersed in the world of radical feminism, but my ovaries were craving for more. What else could this truly magical world that I had just discovered offer me? Could my never-ending thirst for smashing patriarchy ever be quenched? It was at that moment that my dainty fingers, don't mock them, they get the job done, which is why I reject cisgender men on a regular basis, scrolled through Google, and heavens above, I landed on Bitch Media's homepage. But what is Bitch Media? Bitch Media's mission is to provide and encourage an engaged, thoughtful feminist response to mainstream media and popular culture. Bitch seeks to be a fresh, revitalizing voice in contemporary feminism, one that welcomes complex arguments and refuses to ignore the contradictory and often uncomfortable realities of life in an unequivocally gendered world. Bitch not only plays a role in exploring these topics, it also provides a toolkit for engaging in analysis that promotes activism and impels social change. I can only imagine the wondrous prose that such an eloquent-sounding website has to offer. My vagina forced me to give up non-monogamy. I was newly single when Evan contacted me on OkCupid. His profile noted that he and his wife were in an open marriage, but his initial message was pretty benign. Something about a band I mentioned in my bio and our shared love of punk music. I would have normally ignored his message because I wasn't interested in dating people who weren't single, like everyone else. But he seemed nice, and according to his profile, we had a lot more in common than just our tastes in music. So I told him maybe we could get drinks as friends. Later that week, and after a couple of beers, we were making out outside a bar in downtown Brooklyn. We continued dating for the next year. Eventually, I found myself drawn to the idea of polyamory. But my vagina had different ideas. That's how I began dating exclusively within the poly community. I went to platonic meetups for poly people and sex parties for the non-monogamous. And then my vagina revolted. I'd never had problems like this before, save for the occasional urinary tract infection, UTI, when I first began having sex and didn't know you were supposed to pee after sex. Ugh. But all of a sudden I started getting UTIs, yeast infections, and bacterial vaginosis as often as I got my period. And they were bad. Sometimes the pain was so severe and so distracting that I had to take days off from work. My partners were never annoyed about the issues, but I was annoyed with myself. I'd set out to find sexual intimacy with multiple people, and most times, because of my myriad of infections, I couldn't have it with even one. My gynecologist wrote me antibiotic and antifungal prescriptions and sent me on my way. Never was there any question as to what was causing the problems, but I had an idea. I wonder if it was the vagina. My own poly journey ended when I decided the cost, physical and mental, was getting too high, not to mention the bill I was running up at the gynecologist's office. Not even boric acid or probiotics could control my raging vaginal issues, and the frequent courses of antibiotics were starting to hurt my stomach and my heart. I loved having multiple loves, but I hated being at the mercy of a stubborn vagina. Polyamory isn't for everyone, regardless of genital issues, of course, but for me... My vagina was sending me a message, and I was hearing it loud and clear. As I sipped my soy latte, and having agreed wholeheartedly with everything I just discovered, I couldn't help but wonder, am I a radical feminist? Is my vagina ready for the thrill of non-monogamy in the name of feminism? Would I be able to handle all the infections? After all, being vegan, I am a big fan of yeast. Did I truly survive the myriad of trials of girlhood that life threw at me? And am I ready to forget everything I knew about gender and fight to abolish the misogynistic caste system that has helped the patriarchy rule for so long? All of these questions circled in the empty void where my brain should be, but at least one thing was crystal clear. In my heart, I knew I was already a radical feminist. I just need to find someone who wants to share my menstrual flow.